Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another FP&A Trends webinar. And the subject of today's webinar is the power of integrated FP&A. And now I would like to introduce our speaker and facilitator, Tanbir Jasimuddin, Director of Finance at Vardags. Tanbir is an active member of our London FP&A board, and he has experience from the both worlds, from consulting world, from leading organizations over there, and also he's been leading analytical and data transformation at a number of companies here in the UK and globally. Tanbir, we are so glad to have you here. Welcome to FP&A Trends webinar.
Okay, thank you very much, Larissa. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. My name is Tanbir. I am currently Director of Finance at Vardags. So one or two of you may be aware that there are a few events happening in the world at the moment that's dominating headlines. It has a heavy impact and a heavy burden on FP&A teams all over. I feel your pain. However, my viewpoint's always been that this isn't a one-off event. It's happened before and it will happen again. So potentially aliens will be landing on Earth. So potentially what this means for FP&A is that we have to work together fast, be agile and replan lots of scenarios with information that's changing hourly, which is great, except a Big Four survey I read last year said that about half of CFOs were unhappy with the speed at which forecasts were done. And certainly this is true in a traditional vertically integrated process where you're doing a top-down plan and a bottom-up plan across the business where you're not integrated across the organization. And what happens is rarely, people are working in silos and they rarely meet in the middle. And I've got a really good example of that from recent experience. Midway through, an event happened and we decided to change our channel strategy. What this meant was that there was a higher volume of calls coming in through our contact center. Unfortunately, the contact center weren't linked in with this particular plan. And what happened as a result was they did not have the capacity to deal with the increased volume of sales, and therefore they lost sales revenue or potential sales revenue. So if I look on the next slide, moving beyond that, what organizations started to do was actually harmonize the planning processes happening in the strategy team, in the operations and the business teams, as well as the FP&A teams within finance. So you had your cross-functional horizontal integration there as a single continuous process, which for me sounds familiar because this is what vendors have been trying to sell us for a long time as what we call integrated business planning. My opinion on that is that actually if you want true integrated FP&A, it is actually so much more than that. So moving on to the next slide. So the one before, sorry. Yeah. So yeah, integrated FP&A is much, much more than that. And I think it starts off with our foundations where we've got our driver-based models cascaded all the way through the organizations where you can plan and fast. That's borrowing from the integrated business planning. But I think what you need to finish off your foundational area is your leadership and culture to drive this through. People want to have to work together. People need the drive to be able to do this. Three recent trends that I'm going to quote as well that needs to be considered as well. Agile is a bit of a buzzword. It was being considered a buzzword. In my opinion, is actually becoming a reality. More and more organizations are actually getting bottom line benefits out of this. So agile basically means that you're all working together, small cross-functional teams deployed to solve a problem. Second big trend is data. A recent trend of our FP&A members last year showed us that about 90 to 95% of us were not happy with the quality of our data. This is absolutely critical to get right. If you can't process data at large scales, you can't do FP&A at scale. You can't plan for real-time scenarios. And indeed, a survey from McKinsey last month showed us that the organizations that were considered to be analytics leaders also had approximately, I think, 20% better EBITDA performance compared to their peers. Last but not least, you need to have the systems to bring it all together. I've seen a bit of a love-in of Excel in recent times, and I think XLOOKUPs have sent people on LinkedIn crazy. Having said that, yes, Excel is a great tool, but you cannot do, flexible multi-dimensional forecasting. So those are the key trends that make up FP&A, integrated FP&A. And I'd just like to finish off with a bit of a summary on the next slide. So why should you integrate integrated FP&A? Well, firstly, you get much shorter time cycles for planning, and as you'll hear from Will later on, sorry, Will, I'm going to give away some of your secrets, but the iteration time and cycle time is considerably less. Coming back to my first point, you get real-time scenario modeling, and last but not least, everyone is actually working together in the organisation. So that concludes what I'm going to talk about now. And before we kind of move on to Will's presentation, I'd like to get some opinions from you in the audience.
Thank you so much, Tanbir. And before to say bye-bye, I would like to say thank you so much to our sponsor for today's webinar, Board International. Thank you for your great support. And in FP&A Trends Group, we are developing a number of interesting, impactful, really latest webinars with latest case studies. Please stay with us